Welcome to Our Jewish Roots, with insightful Bible teaching by Dr. Jeffrey Seif. Today we answer your letters and take a look at our new series, Faith of Our Father. Ready for another question?
Yeah.
I gotta put these on like yours. Does the United States equal New Babylon? My mother and I have lively conversations on the future Babylon. She insists it was the USA, while I thought it was the original location Babylon. From what I have read, the original Babylon has been rebuilding. High-tech wiring has been laid for future business conferences.
I look at the literature literally, and when he speaks of Babylon in the literature, he is speaking of Babylon. And when he speaks of Babylon in the Newer Testament, we know it's Rome because it's used interchangeably in Jewish literature, where Babylon is referred to as Rome, the city that sits amongst the 7 hills, etc., which is where Rome was.
So we need to be really careful to take how we apply, especially the prophetic scriptures, to our time now. Speaking of the new series, you want a sneak peek? Here we go.
The Word of God has given us examples of faith that have shaped virtually every aspect of the believer's life today. Where would we be without the examples of Noah, Abraham, and Isaac, David, and ultimately that of Yeshua, Jesus? Faith is woven into the fabric of America as well. From the Pilgrims to John Adams, to Patrick Henry and George Washington, God's providential hand remained highly esteemed and honored above all. Faith unshakable, faith unstoppable, faith of our fathers.
I differentiate faith from theology. Actually, theological constructs come from a Latin dictum, fides quaerens intellectum, which translates as faith in search of understanding. That is to say, someone has something resonating within them, and then they go into the biblical story to try and ascertain it and figure it out, and they come up with theology. Today, when we think of faith, we think of theological constructions. When I look in the biblical text, faith, when I think of Abraham, I think of someone that has a vision of a future. It's not reduced or translated into dogma, into doctrine. So it is today, when we think of faith, we think of philosophical systems. I think that's problematic personally, not that I have anything against theology per se, but faith is something different. Faith is something that lives more in the breast than lives in the head. It's not to say there's no residency there, but faith sometimes prompts people to do things that don't make sense in the head. In fact, we look at it early in the game in the book Bereshit in Genesis, where it makes no sense at one level. Abram is such an older man, and his wife isn't much younger. He is concerned that he doesn't have a future because he doesn't have a son. But he goes out for a walk, goes out, takes a look at the evening sky, and we're told that he looks up at the stars in chapter 15. He hears the voice before that in verse 5 that your descendants will be akin to the multitude. He said, so shall your seed be. Subsequent to which, in verse 6, we're told that Abraham believed God.
Good day, sir. Thank you for coming.
Good day, Betsy. It's my pleasure. It seems you've been given a godly task.
Must be, sir. I feel so unworthy. I'm good with needle and thread, and I cut well with scissors, but this is also new to me.
I believe Mr. Payne has said it well. These are the times that try men's souls. It's new to all of us, giving birth to a new nation. It's not just you. We're all feeling dependent on God's providential hand as we consider the blessings and the consequences that await us.
When the Congressional Committee called upon me, I knew this would be a noble effort. I've gathered the cloth that I believe would be suitable. The white will offset the red nicely, I believe. It speaks so well of purity.
Is this your design?
No, sir. It was actually given to me by the committee. It is actually much like the continental flag, but the 13 colonies will be represented by white stars against a field of blue.
There's so much in the American founding that points back to really the Jewish heritage and history. Our founding fathers extensively quoted Old Testament passages. They even modeled the American Republic after the Hebrew Republic. So there's a lot of camaraderie there.
So you're a guy that's really dug into principal sources. You've been interested in that as an individual. I'm interested in the first 2 centuries of the Christian era. You're interested in 200 years back and digging around that world. But out of that inquiry of your own has developed a ministry, Wall Builders, correct? What's that all about?
Wall Builders is a name taken from the Bible book of Nehemiah, and it talks about how the people rebuilt things that had been torn down in their nation. Old Testament history, if you didn't have a wall around your city, if you were unwalled, you had no protection, you had no strength, you had no significant name. And so we see in the book of Nehemiah that after the walls had been torn down by the Babylonians, 70 years later, Nehemiah comes back and said, let's rebuild so that we'll no longer be a reproach. And in our case, we look at what we don't know about American heritage, what we don't know about the American Constitution, American faith, and we say that needs to be rebuilt. So our mantra is that we present America's forgotten history and heroes with an emphasis on our moral, religious, and constitutional heritage.
Hey, I'm all for that. Nehemiah, Nehemiah in Hebrew means God comforts. A lot of people have been discomforted by this revisionist approach to history that wants to ferret out biblical references and orientation.